Hello, welcome to There Will Always Be Another Book. Today I am talking about A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce. So, really quick, my rating. This is a slightly guilty 3 out of 4 stars of this book. I'm not a fan of half stars. If I did use it, it would be a 3.5, but I felt like I kind of wanted to round down and not up on this one. Just because while there are some parts of the book, especially the beginning third and the last, I guess, say 40 pages, I really enjoyed. There are lots of parts in the middle that I didn't enjoy so much, but as a quick, spoiler-free plot summary, the title of the book is pretty indicative of what you think it's going to be about and what I thought it was going to be about, but it's pretty much a character named Stephen Daedalus who lives in Ireland and comes from a family that has these expectations of him, but he wants to become an artist, and so the book is supposedly his story of kind of rebelling and trying to become an artist. He tries to write a poem, and then eventually in the end he succeeds in writing a poem. And that was that was the premise that was given to me when I heard it, and the book really started like that. And but then there's a lot of the middle of the book devoted to Stephen's kind of experiences going to his school, and there's this entire long section in the middle that is just like it's trying to be a Dostoevsky novel, where we're just getting these insanely long and drawn out sermons that I'm just man. And I get that it's trying to have the length of these sermons is maybe contributing to what eventually gets Stephen or gets Daedalus to turn away from it, but I really just couldn't get over the fact that so much of the middle of this book felt like a drag to me. But there are some really, really great things, and being an artist myself, there are some things that I found so hilarious that I just wanted to point out. So pretty early on in the book, there's a section where he's trying to be very proper and very formal and sitting down to write a poem. And I might actually just even read this because it's so good. On the first line of the page appeared the title of the verses he was trying to write, To E.C. He knew it was right to begin so, for he had seen similar titles in the collected poems of Lord Byron. When he had written this title and drawn an ornamental line underneath, he fell into a daydream and began to draw diagrams on the cover of the book. He saw himself sitting at his table in Bray the morning after the discussion at the Christmas table, trying to write a poem about Parnell on the back of one of his father's second moiety notices. But his brain had then refused to grapple with the theme, and, desisting, he had covered the page with the names and addresses of certain of his classmates, Roderick Kickham, John Lawton, Anthony McSwiney, Simon Moonan. And this was just so funny to read because it's so true when you try to go through these procedures to sit down and oh yes, I'm going to be very proper, I'm going to write, and I'll feel this as well when I'm trying to do all the setup and engraving to write some music, and then I just start daydreaming about something, and seven minutes later you realize you haven't done anything. And that was so refreshing. And I was, after reading this, I was really enjoying it. But the book does go on this long adventure into the middle of Daedalus's life, and it really, for me, after that, after page 75, it only really picked up again as being interesting for me at page 229, which is where he's I think this is 10 years after his all of the experiences of him being in school. He's been more or less disowned by his father, and he's getting getting his clothes cleaned or getting food from his family on the side without his father knowing. And this was just such a great section that was written because he's kind of come to this full development in his artistic awareness that he's literally seeing things around and he's converting them to prose in just like on the fly. And I don't know how long this will take, but this is just such a great section. I do want to read it. Towards dawn he awoke. Oh, what sweet music! His soul was all dewy wet. Over his limbs in sleep pale cool waves of light had passed. He lay still as if his soul lay amid cool waters, conscious of faint sweet music. His mind was waking slowly to a tremulous morning knowledge, a morning inspiration. A spirit filled him, pure as the purest water, sweet as dew, moving as music. But how faintly it was inbreathed, how passionlessly, as if the seraphim themselves were breathing upon him. His soul was waking slowly, fearing to awake wholly. It was that windless hour of dawn when madness wakes and strange plants open to the light and the moth flies forth silently. Oh man, it's so delicious to read out loud. An enchantment of the heart. The night had been enchanted. In a dream or vision he had known the ecstasy of seraphic life. Was it an instant of enchantment only, or long hours and years and ages? The instant of inspiration seemed now to be reflected from all sides at once, from a multitude of cloudy circumstances of what had happened or of what might have happened. The instant flashed forth like a point of light, and now from cloud on cloud of vague circumstance confused form was veiling softly its afterglow. Oh, in the virgin womb of the imagination the Word was made flesh. Gabriel the seraph had come to the Virgin's chamber. An afterglow deepened within his spirit, whence the white flame had passed, deepening to a rose and ardent light. That rose and ardent light was her strange wilful heart, strange that no man had known or would know, wilful from before the beginning of the world, and lured by that ardent rose-like glow the choirs of the seraphim were falling from heaven. Are you not weary of ardent ways, lure of the fallen seraphim? Tell no more of enchanted days. And when I read that, the first time I read it, and this goes on, by the way, like he continues to just, I'll read just the next short paragraph and the next verse. The verses passed from his mind to his lips, and murmuring them over, he felt the rhythmic movement of the villanelle pass through them. I hope I'm saying that right. The rose-like glow sent forth its rays of rhyme, ways, days, blaze, praise, rays. Its rays burned up the world, consumed the hearts of men and angels, the rays from the rose that was her wilful heart. Your eyes have set man's heart ablaze, and you have had your will of him. Are you not weary of ardent ways? And this goes on to the point where he composes like a full-on poem, and this has to be, I preferred Dubliners over this as a complete product, but so far, this whole section of him just lying in his bed, thinking, having this beautiful kind of imagination, inspiration, climbing out of bed, writing the prose, and then crawling back in bed and just thinking, and this going on, was one of the most just pleasant things that I've read from Joyce. It's like, and I know I talked a lot about how I didn't enjoy the middle of this book, but really it was great to see how his style was changed, and I have heard that Joyce is pretty amazing at his versatility of style, and I'm super keen to read Ulysses. I'm reading Joyce's 4 big works just chronologically, so started with Dubliners, I've read this now, and then when I get home I'll be able to get Ulysses, and finally Finnegan's Wake, which I've heard is a bit of a trip. But I don't know, so I know I gave this 3 out of 4 stars, and I'm guilty but unapologetic about it. But nevertheless, it's almost worth just sort of reading and powering through the book to get to that end part where he writes the poem. But still, my general impression was just that it wasn't as enjoyable as Dubliners, but Dubliners, it's also a little bit unfair because it's a bunch of short stories, so you're never kind of building up. You're just like, bam, 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 like short, really amazingly detailed insights into Dubliner life. So, yeah, I hope some of what I said made sense, and also that hopefully it was helpful. There's still, I do want to stress that I enjoyed a lot of the middle of the book, especially Stephen being young, and just like his starting writing the poem as I read to you. So aside from the, like I already mentioned, the long religious indoctrination that he gets in school, there's also a lot of sections where there's this big section with him and a friend named Lynch where he's talking about, he's basically just going on a big philosophical aesthetics rant, and it's one of those things that's it's tricky. I don't know why I didn't hate it in other things. Like, I can enjoy, when I'm reading Dostoevsky, I can enjoy the characters sort of stepping out and just going on philosophical or political rants that are very obviously just Dostoevsky in disguise. But it fell a little bit flat for me in this one, and I'm not sure why. It wasn't necessarily that I disagreed with Daedalus's things, but it was, yeah, I don't know. That part just felt really long and forced compared to some of the other works that have done a similar thing. But anyway, I think I am going to wrap it up here. There's not much more I wanted to say about Joyce. Other than that, I am still keen to read Ulysses, so maybe a spoiler alert for some of my later book reviews. My favorite author is Nabokov, and Nabokov said that Ulysses was like the greatest 20th century work of prose written, so I'm more than keen to get into that. But of course, let me know in the comment section what you thought of this book, especially just like the big middle section, because I thought it was interesting, and it does hold up to the title of it being a portrait of the artist, and all of the important developments that they go through to become the artist that they become. But it dragged on for so long for me that it bumped it down to a 3 out of 4. But I am curious if you enjoyed it. Maybe there's some particular parts that I'm missing, but I'm more than happy to hear and find out what your guys' thoughts are. And thank you so much for watching. Remember to keep reading. There will always be another book, and I'll see you in the next video.